What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what is truly moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoundHound's down 4.72%, 1063 the low, 1129 the high, and 18 million shares being traded. So very low volume. But then again, that's been more of a common occurrence over the last several trading days. So this is why if you get a heavily shorted stock, kind of take away the volume, you get this type of price action. So not necessarily the best. As far as today, we did have Jolt numbers came in at 7.43 million. 7.5 was the forecast, so a little bit lower. And so that's, in my opinion, not great, but at the same time, not necessarily a crazy reason and a cause for concern. What is causing a lot of fear in the broader market is companies unveiling their earnings and giving relatively bad future guidance. And in my opinion, I think a lot of that does stem to UPS. So I think the age-old thing about investing, there's always some kind of rules of thumb. Buy when there's a lot of blood, as well as technically, if you are looking for signs of recession, look at transportation companies such as UPS and FedEx. And UPS today did fully withdraw their actual full guidance because of macro concerns. So that is pretty much the biggest red flag in the broader market I have ever seen, especially we look at data points every single day, but for UPS to withdraw their actual guidance, that is really, in my opinion, what analysts are starting to freak out over. So let me know your thoughts on that. But even aside from UPS, there's a lot of other companies not necessarily giving the best guidance. As far as SoundHound specific, no news from them, no SEC filings or anything like that. They posted one thing on social media, just more of an article, just kind of talking on how essentially it's good and AI is going to be really revolutionary. So this is something that they've always kind of put out. But aside from that, not really any crazy catalyst. So I think the next big one is going to be their earnings, and that is slated for the 7th after hours. If you want me to live stream it, I can definitely do that. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to do that. But earnings per share, current estimates is -5 cents, revenue 32.88 million, and then over the last 90 days is 0 positive and 5 negative revisions to the earnings per share. So not that much optimism going into the upcoming earnings. I will do a deeper dive though into kind of some expectations, what Wall Street's really going to be looking for from their earnings. So I'll do probably this weekend. I'll kind of touch on that. So stay tuned for that video. But that for face value is some current estimates. One thing as well I want to bring up is shorts. So right now they are increasing 721,000 shares. 33.8% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 122.36 million shares overall are being shorted. And that works out to be 1.37 billion. So another day that they are fairly active. And even just generally over the last quarter, they have been very much a big part of the day-to-day trading, so making up for as high as 60% of the daily volume. Low end I think is more so 35 to 40%, but still this is crazy on what is happening with SoundHound behind the scenes. So hopefully they do really have a kick-ass earnings and really say F you to the shorts, because I think there's just a certain level of confidence coming from shorts that, hey, we are pretty much running the show. So hopefully SoundHound puts out some good catalysts that some actual institutions can get behind, because we've seen SoundHound really move higher if we get even a little bit of capital coming in, so institutions buying. But moral of the story is the ball is in SoundHound's court. They need to really execute and continue to bring in more and more customers and revenue. So definitely SoundHound can't just be stagnant. They have to kind of be proactive. And that's one thing that I've kind of complained about in the past about SoundHound, is that they tend to just, in my opinion at least, that's the impression I get from their earnings, they're sitting back and expecting customers to come to them. Whereas SoundHound in their last earnings, they mentioned there is a hell of a lot of competition in this sector growing. And I'm sure there are some hungry dogs that would be more than willing to do what it takes to get that customer. So I think SoundHound needs to be more driven, in my opinion. But we'll have to wait and see how management is and how they word things in the upcoming earnings. Looking at options, 3.3 million in calls, 828,000 in puts. 50% of all the options being done today are bearish in nature. So people and big money is anticipating more of a further downside. Unfortunately, from the bulls standpoint, there is still a strong consensus for it to be roughly around that $12 range. So a fairly nice recovery for that. Bears are anticipating for it to be kind of sub 1050 to 11. So where we're basically at. So meaning there's a little bit more upside anticipated. So that's kind of a positive. But aside from that, with it at 1076, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 1022 is going to be a strong support. Wasn't tested today, but just watch for that into the next couple trading days. And then 1096 is going to be the next strong target / resistance, followed by 1141. So I know a lot of people might be bearish on SoundHound and just much of the greater market, but all it will take is just a lot of the big tech names, which is unveiling the earnings in the next couple trading days, that will be enough to really push the market out of this kind of crap. So that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think it might be a little bit premature to start just counting SoundHound down and out. That's just my opinion, of course. One thing as well, no new analyst ratings, no real articles really talking about SoundHound. So it is just merely piggybacking off of the broader market. Aside from that though, on the actual chart, it is currently nearing a lot of key points. So that 200-day moving average is sitting at 1077, so essentially it is below that. You also do have that 50-day moving average at 1065. So potentially, if it does break below that 50-day moving average, this is where historically you do see like a 30% pullback, but it needs to be below that for 2 consecutive days. So most likely that's what Shorts' plan is, just to break it on a technical standpoint below that 50-day moving average. So just watch for that, at least in the short term. Aside from that, you do have that 100-day moving average at 988. Because of this crazy pullback though, stochastic RSI is oversold, meaning the first sign of a positive, whether it be specific to SoundHound or let's say company unveiling the earnings or big data, then you could see a nice push higher. But just kind of take note of what I mentioned for support points with moving averages and based on the fib levels. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Do you believe in it still? Do you think that the market itself is due for a correction? What's your general thoughts on all that? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.